Is this thing on?
Hi everyone, we're your tour guides for today.
And welcome to Northwestern. Hi, I'm James. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm from New Jersey, a little town called Robbinsville. And at Northwestern, I study psychology and communication studies.
And I'm Sophia. I use she, her pronouns. And at Northwestern, I study communication sciences and disorders, along with psychology and linguistics. I'm also from New Jersey, a town called Mantua. So today we're going to give a joint tour to give you a better idea of our Northwestern experiences, especially as it relates to the School of Communication, and a little bit about psychology.
All right, let's come along.
So we like to start off our tours here with a little bit of history about the school. So Northwestern was founded in 1851 by a group of Methodist ministers in what was then the Northwest Territory of the United States, hence the name Northwestern, even though we're very much a Midwestern university. Classes didn't actually start though until 1855, those 4 years in between. No one really knows what was happening, but us tour guides like to call them the Dark Ages. Since we were founded by a group of Methodist ministers, our original mascot was actually the Fighting Methodists, but today we have no religious affiliation, and our mascot is the Wildcats, which I personally think has a much better ring to it.
Yeah, it's way more fierce.
Our campus sits here in Evanston, Illinois, which is a really wonderful college town and suburb just north of the global hub city of Chicago. Here in Evanston, we really have anything that a college student might need. We have a Target, a Whole Foods, a Trader Joe's. We also have a ton of coffee shops. If any of you are coffee connoisseurs and want to try out some new drinks, and a ton of restaurants. We are the self-proclaimed dining capital of the North Shore. My personal favorite is the wide array of brunch spots that Evanston has. James and I are both very big fans of Frida's, if you're interested in trying that out. But there's a lot of other cool restaurants around Evanston as well.
There's also just way more to do than just food here in Evanston. We have an AMC theater, a trampoline park that just got built, and if you look to our left, you'll come up on one of our beaches on our campus. We call this beach South Beach because it's the beach on the south half of our campus. That's okay. We have a much more creatively named beach up north. We call that one North Beach because it's the beach on the northern half of our campus. The northern one is private just to us, the Northwestern students, and this one right here, South Beach, we share with our Northwestern community. You can also look and see all the paid actors we tipped off before the tour began to show you just how outdoorsy we are. On the down low, the University of Miami only has one beach. So we have two, who's the beach school, but that'll just be a secret between us. But we actually go to Chicago all the time as well. It's pretty close. We're 2 miles out from the city's outer limits, 10 miles out from the heart of Chicago. That's where you'll find like the Magnificent Mile, the Bean, all those skyscraper buildings. And we have 4 ways of getting there. The first of which is the Intercampus Shuttle. That's a bus that takes you directly from our campus, our undergraduate campus, to some of our graduate campuses in downtown Chicago. It's going to be a 45-minute commute with Wi-Fi. You won't be doing too much of your undergraduate work in downtown Chicago at all. It'll pretty much just be here, so no worries about the commute. But we also have the CTA. That is the L for short, the elevated subway system. That gets you there in around an hour. It'll be around $2 a trip as well. Our third way is the Metra. It is a commuter rail, half the time, double the cost. So it will be around 20-30 minutes a trip, but it will cost around $5 or so depending on how deep you're going into the city. Our fourth way is walking. Fun fact, my a cappella group, we tried to walk to Chicago once because someone told us it was really close via walking. It took us 10.5 hours to start right here and get to the Bean. We all had to like Uber home after because we were so sore, but you'll see our skyline very, very shortly, so you can see how we were a bit gullible to that. But this building right here is a sailing center, if you want to talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so the Sailing Center is actually home of our club sailing team. Later on during the tour, we'll talk more about athletics. Included in that is club sports. But our club sailing team, they practice here, get out on Lake Michigan on those lovely sailboats, and then we'll travel around the country competing in different regattas. If you're not a sailing professional, though, you can still get out on Lake Michigan in a variety of ways, swimming obviously, but the sailing center additionally has paddle boards and kayaks for rent if you want to get out on the water in a little bit of a different way. Definitely a fun way to try and get more experience at a really wonderful location next to Lake Michigan. As true Jersey people, we grew up down the shore, as they say, and so being next to the water has been a really great part of my Northwestern experience. Definitely reminds me of home a little bit. But if you look this way, you can actually see the skyline of Chicago. Really beautiful day out today. Just goes to show how close we really are to the city. Even if it might take 10.5 hours to walk there, there is really a lot of access to Chicago, and students will go down for so many reasons.
Some reasons might include going to the Art Institute, which is free for us. They have an entire museum campus where different days of the week it's free if you can prove you're from Illinois, so we can prove that with our wild card. That's our student identification card. We also have a lot of theater, really good shows that are in the Goodman Theater, Steppenwolf Theater. We also have Second City in Chicago, which I got to perform at a few times, which is a kind of area, a hub of comedy in downtown Chicago, which has been such a cool part of my Northwestern experience. We also have good athletics like the Chicago Blackhawks and the Chicago Cubs. We even have this day every spring called Northwestern Day at Wrigley. It's where Northwestern gives us really discounted tickets to go see a Chicago Cubs game, and it's really great. Sophia and I will dress in all purple, get some free Cubs merch, and we all get to watch the Cubs lose together. It truly is a good part of being a Northwestern student.
Yeah, my personal experiences in Chicago, definitely going down to explore, see shows. I also have participated in some research opportunities downtown, so I've taken that intercampus shuttle that James mentioned down to the hospital downtown, a super easy commute, and got me some really cool experience working with patients in the hospital for some clinical research opportunities. We'll talk more about research a little bit later in the tour, but a lot of students will have research opportunities in Evanston, but Chicago really opens up the door for so much else. So right now we're actually walking into what we call the Arts Circle. Right over here we have the Ryan Center for the Musical Arts. That's home of our Beanan School of Music, our really wonderful conservatory style music school with some pretty professional musicians being trained there. So they'll take classes there, but also the 5th floor is actually the advising offices and the dean's office for the School of Communication. So I'm up there for my meetings with my advisor a lot, and definitely a perk of School of Comm is that you'll be able to be in that building sometime as well.
Yeah, so some arts opportunities extracurricularly could include joining our marching band, which is audition free unless you want to be a part of the drum line. So that means anyone can pretty much join our music opportunities, even if you're not an academically degree-seeking student for those majors or disciplines. So we have some music major orchestras, but that also means we have some non-music major orchestras and ensembles like choirs to be a part of if you are or aren't a music major. So lots of opportunity there. You can even take voice lessons for class credit, which a lot of our musical theater interested students will make use of here. We're also passing the Lewis Theater, which is on our left. It is one of our 3 main stage theaters on our campus. So you'll see a lot of our Northwestern faculty run productions that happen right here in this art circle. Some other main stage theaters, the other 2 are going to be Kahn Auditorium, which seats 1,000 students, and it's home to the 2 of the largest musicals in the country. One of those musicals being the Wah Muse Show. I think we're on its 92nd year, so 92 years of fully student curated musicals. So it's student written, student composed, student directed, student acted and performed, student stage managed. The whole gist is all done by students. It's the largest student created musical in the country. That same Kahn Auditorium that seats 1,000 people is also where the Dolphin Show is, which is the largest student-produced musical in the country. We just did Kinky Boots. The year before was Matilda. So these really big musicals go up there. I actually got to be in it, and I'm not actually a theater major, which goes to emphasize the idea that any student across any discipline can get involved with the arts here. We also have this really big dancing group called Refusion Shaka, and by dancing group I mean it's this big dance performance that combines 3 of our biggest dance dancing groups on campus. And not to send shockwaves throughout anyone watching this, but we are both not dancers. But it's a fun event to watch. So you'll combine fusion dance, refresh, another dance group, and then Boom Shaka, which is Northwestern's premier drum, dance, and rhythm ensemble on campus. So they'll, bang on pots and pans and trash cans, but also dance. And it's like, actually, it sounds crazy, but it's actually one of the best things to watch on our campus. These dance groups also expand to like Bhangra, which goes and competes and does South Asian dance. We have K-dance, so tonic tap, graphonic, lots of dancing groups to be involved of and performances to get involved in, which is super fun as a Northwestern student. We're also passing one of our RTVF buildings. This is where we call the cage. So you can rent out all your camera equipment for all the short films and movies you want to be acting in, directing while you're a Northwestern student here. And lastly, we have around 12 different a cappella groups. We say the movie Pitch Perfect is based on us because the writers actually went to Northwestern, so we boast that. And according to a cappella rank, we're the #1 a cappella college in the country, so obviously a highly credible source there, but we love our a cappella. We treat it like it's D1 athletics sometimes. But once again, every arts opportunity is open to any student, so even if you're watching this video and you change your mind and don't want to be school communication, you still can get involved with these extracurriculars.
Yeah, so right now we're coming up on the Wirtz Center. This is a really large building that a lot of School of Comm students will call home, along with a lot of students who are involved in any of those arts-based groups. So we're gonna go inside and we're gonna talk more about academics, but here in the Wirtz Center might be where students are taking their dance classes, their voice lessons, theater classes, through the Lewis Hall as part of Wirtz Center, maybe taking those radio, television, and film classes, and really having a lot of opportunities to engage with our faculty in classes that don't look as much like a classroom and look more like a studio, really exploring your work in more of a playful way.
We're being let in at the moment.
Secure building on campus.
Yeah, safety's top notch here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
We're now here in one of the theaters in Wirtz. This is a real classroom that students will have any of their dance or theater classes in. Also, some of those rehearsals might be there. These chairs are for your classmates to watch you, your professors to watch you, and sometimes there will even be some small performances that will happen in here. But it's where we'll start talking about academics at Northwestern and what being a student really looks like here. So the biggest thing about Northwestern academics is we are on the quarter system. We have 3 main academic quarters each year: fall, which is September to December; winter, which is January to mid-March; spring, which is like the tail end of March to the first week of June; and then we have the highly optional summer quarter. Only about 2% of students will ever take classes during summer quarter, but it's why we are the quarter system, even if you want to think of us more like a trimester system. Each quarter is 10 weeks long, followed by a finals week, and during each quarter, students are taking 3 to 5 classes, with most students taking 4. If you do the math, that brings us to about 48 classes over our time at Northwestern. At a semester school, 5 classes a semester would bring you to about 40 classes. That extra 8 classes really gives us a lot of academic flexibility, helping you kind of study maybe more than one thing, try out some new classes just for fun, or even maybe pick up another minor or another major. All of it's really a great possibility with the quarter system.
Yeah, there's definitely an emphasis around using those classes, the extra built-in 8, to kind of throw at a wall, see what sticks. So I bet we both have our own examples of how we use this quarter system flexibility to find our other interests. For me, it was figuring out what I wasn't so interested in. For example, I was an economics major when I came in here, took the calculus sequence, got to my first midterm in the fall quarter and was like, whoa, that was really hard. Dropped the class, walked right out mid-midterm. Winter quarter, took the exact same math class again, got to the second midterm, and this time, for some reason, I thought a cool study tactic was to not study at all. Didn't know anything, dropped that one, and then spring quarter, I took it again, and I passed with flying colors. Maybe it was because I knew what the first 2 midterms looked like, but it's also because we have the quarter system flexibility to really give us the curiosity to go explore. And if it's not for us, we just drop it, or if it's too hard, that shouldn't be something you should worry about because we have so much support, and the support bleeds into our statistics. We have a 6-to-1 student to faculty ratio. That means you can run and you can hide, but you'll know your professors and they'll know you right back. And it's also bolstered by the fact that 2% of our classes are going to be 100 or more students, 80% are going to be 20 or less. So we're actually in a pretty large classroom, so this is considered a large class. If you do find yourself in a large class, we'll give you what we call is a discussion section. That just means you'll be taught by a grad student or a TA that will just reinforce materials. That means they'll go over the problem sets, the lectures, answer any questions in a smaller cohort. So you also still have the opportunity to build community if you do find yourself in a larger class. And that also means we have an 100% professor instruction rate. This means you'll only be learning material from professors, even if in a discussion section you're reinforcing it with a TA. And every professor actually also has office hours. For every class they teach, that's 2 hours of office hours they must have per week per class they teach.
Yeah, so as for your more specific academic experience, it's definitely going to be informed by the school that you're in. We have 6 schools at Northwestern. The Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, about half of our students are going to be in Weinberg, has most of our majors here. If it ends in ology, it's probably in Weinberg, along with just a ton of other majors that you'll probably find at any school. It's our liberal arts college within the larger university. McCormick is our engineering school. They have all of our engineering majors, also a computer science option and applied math. And then the Medill School has journalism, also a certificate in integrated marketing communications. Our School of Education and Social Policy has obviously education and social policy, along with learning and organizational change, learning sciences, and human development and context. And then the Beanon School of Music is our conservatory style music school that has a lot of really great performance majors for some musicians who are training to be at the top of their class, really awesome musicians. I've really loved my experiences listening to them. They're training with world-class faculty to become better musicians. And then the 6th school, and definitely our favorite, is the School of Communication. Within the School of Communication, you can study a very wide range of things. The performance opportunities are obviously pretty vast through theater, dance, and performance studies. But also we have communication studies, which James is studying, and radio, television, and film. Also my major, which is communication sciences and disorders. Within School of Comm, depending on your major, you might have a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Sciences, and this will just help inform kind of your school requirements that you're going to take. If you have a Bachelor of Arts, you're going to be having a language requirement. As a Bachelor of Science, I had a lot more of the biology, physics, and chemistry, but a pretty wide range of things you can study within School of Comm. No matter what, though, you have foundational disciplines. James, you want to talk about those?
Yes, I can, and I know we're talking so much about these programs right now, but you've probably heard about our alumni before you hear about these programs. Some alumni include Seth Meyers, Joy Louis-Dreyfus, Billy Eichner, Katherine Hahn, me, Sophia, Meghan Markle. So if you want to be a princess, you come here. But the foundational disciplines is just our fancy word for electives or gen eds. They're essentially the same thing. There are 6 disciplines, so 6 categories of classes outside your major we'd like you to become proficient in. So these 6 areas include natural sciences, formal studies, which is math and statistics, ethics and values, fine arts and literature, historical studies, and social behavioral sciences. What makes School of Comm specific is they kind of group these disciplines into 3 categories. So instead of doing like a Weinberg's version of it where they do 2 in each of the 6, I'll probably do a combination of 3 math and science, or then 3 ethics, values, social behavioral, and then 3 like arts, literature. So I can kind of get a different spin on those disciplines, but we still are hitting those 6 categories. It's just that our weightings will change. So for example, I did the calculus sequence to satisfy that one, but for the natural sciences one that also needed to fill up that extra class there, I took the nature of plants because I'm not super sciencey, and my final project was going to the Chicago Botanical Garden and taking 20 selfies with the 20 plants we talked about in class. The hardest part of that final was just being brave enough to take 20 selfies in public. I don't know if you've experienced using your foundational disciplines to kind of figure out your electives, but...
Yeah, I've taken a pretty wide range of classes. For example, I had to fill my humanities fine arts requirement, and I personally am more of a science kind of person, and so I decided to take a German class just to fulfill that requirement, because any class within any language department I figured out counted. I also figured out that I could take language and gender, which was both a linguistics and a gender studies class. It's one of our cross-listed classes where you can take it under either department. It's the same class, you're sitting in the same room with everyone, but you're getting just a little bit of a different look on your transcript. So by taking the gender studies class, of really a linguistics class I wanted to take, I was able to fulfill my requirement. Just goes to show that no matter what you're doing at Northwestern, you have a lot of agency in what you're doing, and there's always some ways that your advisor can help you with to get your requirements to be something that you really want to take.
Speaking of academics, around 50% of us will find ourselves doing multiple disciplines, like a double major. 75% will probably have a major and then something else to go along with it. So I know we're diving super deep in the School of Communication, but if the journalism, the engineering, the education, social policy, the arts and sciences, or the music sounds super interesting, you can freely transfer between the schools, unless it's music that would come with an audition. But please check out those videos, find the specificities of those really good, really like rigorous in a good way programming. But that was our school comm spiel, so we hope you enjoyed our homeschool.
Yeah, and so we're gonna head out of Wirtz now and talk some more about just student life. We're here at the other end of the arts circle. Just gonna point out a couple more buildings as we finish up this arts section of the tour. Over there we have the Block Museum of Art. That's a student curated art museum. I personally have not been in, but I've heard it's really cool, and they have a lot of exhibits that keep on changing. And then behind us right now, we have Pick Stager Concert Hall. That's home of a lot of our concerts through the Beanan School of Music, but we also have non-major choirs, orchestras, and bands that students can do to still be involved in the arts without having to do it to that conservatory style level. But over here we actually have Norris University Center. This is our student center here on campus. Really big hub of student life during the year, especially during lunchtime. You'll frequently see students on the ground floor hanging out, eating, but there's also some study spaces inside as well that students will use. Okay, so now we are passing what we call the Norris East Lawn. Over here is this beautiful green space. It's actually going to be renovated pretty soon to include some more seating options for students, also some concert space, and even a pub they're going to have on campus. But we love talking about Norris because it really is such a big hub of student life. It's where a lot of students will hang out during the day, we'll have club meetings, we'll eat, and we'll really use a lot of the resources that Norris has. The Norris Underground is a spot where there's a lot of different opportunities for students to use some really cheap Northwestern resources. For example, the game lounge, you can just go down to play pool if you're bored. The Norris Art Studio called Artica is a spot where you can buy really cheap art equipment. You can do a paint your own pottery. There's also some wheel throwing classes as part of our Norris mini courses if you want to learn a new art form. And also in the Norris Underground, we have Norris Outdoors, which is a spot where students can rent outdoors equipment for really cheap. One example of this is the ice skates. So I like to go to the Maggie Daly Skating Ribbon in Chicago, which is this really beautiful skating area. But instead of paying $20 for some wet ice skates there, I'll just pay $5 at Norris Outdoors and keep dry feet for the rest of the night. The ground floor of Norris is where a lot of our retail dining locations are. We'll touch on dining a little bit later in the tour, but included in the meal plan that all of our first and second year students are on is what we have are 5 meal exchanges each week. These are set meals, so at Mod you can get a build your own pizza or salad. We also can do a build your own sandwich at our Wildcat Deli. That was definitely a pretty popular meal exchange option for me as a first year, but there's also tacos, quesadillas, burgers, smoothies, acai bowls. All these are places you can use those meal exchanges, and you'll get $125 dining dollars each quarter, which can be used at any of those locations, but also Starbucks is inside. And we have the Market, which is a spot to get snacks or drinks or some pre-made meals. I was frequently getting the mini things of Ben & Jerry's ice cream that they sell as I would hang out on our beautiful Lakeville. Definitely a beautiful day, and just goes to show how great of a time you can have outside, especially since Norris is so close to a lot of our outdoor opportunities for students.
Some of my favorite parts of Norris include in that same underground area, we have a virtual reality and esports gaming lounge, which I definitely made use of. But above that, there's this giant auditorium called McCormick Auditorium. We have really cool speakers come there, or to pick, say, your concert hall, like both the Obamas, Beanie Feldstein, Margaret Atwood, who wrote The Handmaid's Tale, as well as Monica Lewinsky, who came and said at the end of her speech, "Don't fall in love with your boss," which had us all like, what? No way she just did that. But above the main auditorium in this Norris Student Center, they have 3 stories of student organization offices. So if you turn over that way and look at that Lakeville, that little peninsula jutting out over Lake Michigan, that is one of our largest clubs that is responsible for transforming that entire island into 3 giant stages, because we put on the largest student-run music festival in the country. We call it Dillo Day, which is short for Armadillo Day, and I don't even have to ask Sophia, but I'm guessing it's also your favorite tradition.
Yes.
So some really cool artists we'll bring here, and we're a little older than y'all watching this, so you might not get as hyped up, but we've had Sway Lee, Kendrick Lamar, Biba Doby, the 1975, Dominic Fike, Remy Wolf, Charlie XCX. So lots of really cool, really talented artists come here, and it's barrier free. So it's a free music festival, and parents and friends watching this, please stay in good relation with your student. They can cover a $25 guest pass. So you can also come to Dillo Day. But our 600 plus clubs can be started if you just have a friend, an advisor, and you last for a year, and then you'll become official Northwestern club and get university funding. So some clubs range from athletics, which we'll talk about, the music and the arts. Anything you have in high school, I promise we have here as well. That's a little loud, so I'm going to try to speak up. But we also have some clubs like speech and debate, student government, the chess club, the chess watching club to watch the chess club play chess, and then the chess trash talking club to make fun of the chess club while they play chess. And recently, charcuterie board club, where students will get Northwestern to cover their groceries, and they'll all just eat a charcuterie board together once per week. So lots of fun clubs to choose from. I will say there's definitely an emphasis around getting involved in our campus extracurricular culture. If I'm doing 4 classes, and if you're doing 4 classes, we're probably doing 4 more clubs on top of it. So we just definitely place emphasis. If there's any clubs you want to highlight that you're involved in.
Yeah, one club I'm definitely super involved in is called Camp Kesem. It's one of our volunteer-based clubs on campus. We have a pretty big list of options of clubs that are really involved with the Evanston community. One that I also love to highlight, it's less of a club, it's more of a community partnership, but it's called Books and Breakfast. They're a group of students who will go into local Evanston elementary schools and will help tutor students there in the mornings. But Camp Kesem is a club I got involved with. I found them at the org fair, or the student organization fair, which kicks off every quarter. At the beginning of my first year, I just kind of made awkward eye contact with a girl at a random table, and I went over to her and I said, "What's your club all about?" So that club, we do a free summer camp and some year-round events for kids affected by a parent's cancer. I've gotten more involved with it throughout my time at Northwestern, but it's definitely a good example of how you don't have to know what clubs you want to do when you come to Northwestern, but you can always find something that can make your Northwestern experience really fulfilling.
Some clubs I was a part of was Survivor Northwestern, where we put on that exact same reality TV show where people vote each other off the island, but right here on our campus. And that was super fun. And I also got to do some work with a nonprofit on our campus called Supplies for Dreams, where we go to Chicago public schools and build curriculum for some field trips or do some one-on-one tutoring and mentoring with those students. So speaking of nonprofit, after these trees are out of view, you will see this giant glass building we call Kellogg. That is our graduate school of business. Unfortunately, at Northwestern, we don't offer a business major, but secretly on the down low, it's to your benefit. We talk to Kellogg, and when I say we, obviously not us. I just meant that we as Northwestern got rid of our business program because we thought, for Kellogg's sake, that we should be not just studying the generic business of business in undergrad for 4 years and then going back to grad school for more years of just studying the generic business of business, but we should be diversifying the classroom with our own unique unique interests. So I'm actually going to go to Kellogg next year after I graduate, so that's super duper exciting because I'm a psychology and communications major, and because I know the most about psychology and the most about communications, I'll then intersect it with my business education there. Some other programs you can get involved with is our business institutions minor, as well as a financial economics certificate and a managerial analytics certificate, all housed in Kellogg, so you can still get that business coursework under your belt. We also have a garage on the note of extracurriculars, which is a space where we'll help students foster their own startups while they are a student here. Another thing I want to point out, next to that glass building, you can kind of see it, some bleachers, some stadium lights, an athletic sort of outdoor kind of buildings that are being built on the Lakeville right now, so we can segue into college athletics at Northwestern.
Yeah, so Northwestern is an NCAA Division I school. We're in the Big Ten Conference. If you guessed it, that means we have how many schools? 18. The Big Ten is a really awesome conference to be a part of. It's where a lot of really cool sports happen. You might not think that Northwestern has that elite of sports, but we do. Some of our sports have been doing really well recently. Usually it's our women's sports that are taking the cake, but our sports overall have some really good records. Our women's lacrosse team has won 8 national championships in the past 15 years. They won their most recent one in 2023, returned back to the national championship game in 2024, and we're hoping that they're back in it and win it once again next year. Our men's basketball team has also been to the second round of March Madness for the past 2 years and have also been doing really well at home. We have a serious home court advantage. We've beaten Purdue both of the last 2 years while they were ranked #1 and we were unranked at home. We've stormed the court. I think it's been a very emotional experience for James.
I did cry. I cried. I fell down a bunch. It was like magical, a magical moment.
And our football team has really had the comeback of the century. We were international champions in 2022 when we won against Nebraska in Dublin, Ireland. But we proceeded to come back to the U.S. high off of our win and won 0 football games for the rest of that season. Really struggled to take the luck of the Irish back with us home. But in 2023, our season definitely turned around. We had a winning season and we won against Utah and the Las Vegas Bowl, so hopefully our football team continues on that trajectory. No matter what though, we get free access to any of our D1 games with our student IDs. We are the only school in the Big Ten to do this, so you get access to whatever sports you want to see, whether they're sports that you grew up loving or sports that you're just realizing you love now that the Cats are playing. You'll be able to get into them and have really awesome athletics experiences here. Sometimes they'll even kind of pay you to go in the form of free merch or Raising Cane's, which is a lovely chicken tenders place, will be given to the first 200 students to show up for a game, really enticing students to be there for a good seat and to get some fuel ahead of the game.
Yeah, I remember I went to Boo Booey's last basketball game and they handed out his bandanas that he would wear, headbands, not bandanas, his headbands, and it was like just paying homage to some of the really great student athletes we have here. I'm sure you probably guessed it, but we are actually not Division I athletes. We're also not club athletes, but we do have around 35 different club sports for you to be involved in. That just means if you played a varsity level sport in high school, you can come to our campus, try out, and play it here. So I'll have a few practices per week and travel on your season to neighboring universities in the Chicagoland area. But where I wreak havoc is in intramural sports, which is just fancy for a Northwestern friend group going up against another Northwestern friend group. And they say if you practice for your intramural sport, you're doing way too much. So it's pretty low stakes. Just go with your friends, go play around. And if sports are still too much for you, we have 6 gyms, 4 interspersed that are 24/7 around our dorms, and our largest 2, one of which has 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools, a diving station, 2-story weightlifting room, indoor track, all that good stuff, and free workout classes. So I've done free kickboxing, free cardio, and free yoga. But if you want to look right there at that sign, you'll see another important part of our academic career.
So right now we are in front of Swift Hall. This is a place that James and I have spent a lot of time. It is home of the psychology department. A lot of our advisors' offices are in here, along with a lot of classes. The first class I've ever taken at Northwestern actually was in the lecture hall in Swift, so I have a lot of fond memories there. We have a really cool psychology department where you can take a wide range of classes in a lot of disciplines. I'm also going to highlight this second part of Swift, which is technically called Cressup. Most students have actually never heard of it, and that's because there's only really one classroom in there, and it's for linguistics majors and minors. So I've taken a lot of classes there, and I've really had so many classes overall in this building, so it's been a big part of my Northwestern experience in two departments I've really loved.
Another building in this area that's been a huge part of my experience, I don't know if you can see it poking through the trees there, it's this little brown shack. It's tiny, it's small, it's gritty, and that is Shanley Pavilion. It's like a mini black box theater where you see some of the best student written work in this really intimate space. So I saw Rent here. I saw this event called WrestlePocalypse where they'll write narratives and a bunch of wrestling matches, and it's a whole production based on stage combat. I've also seen people transform Shanley Pavilion into mini proms for their clubs here, so that's been super exciting. But some shout out classes that I've taken in Swift Hall: psychopathology, abnormal psych, psych of beauty and attractiveness. Any psych classes you want to shout out?
Yeah, I want to shout out emotion and cognition in everyday life. That was a really cool class. Psychopathology, a double shout out. Also developmental psychology have been really fun for me, definitely. Also linguistics class I took in that building was formal analysis of words and sentences. Sounds super cool, I know. I also took a class called pragmatics in that building. So definitely a lot of cool classes that have been in there. And I'm enrolled in social and personality development for the fall. But definitely a lot of cool classes. If you kind of look beyond the trees, you're gonna start seeing two of our libraries at Northwestern. The more brown building, it's kind of brutalist structure. It's called University Library, more commonly known as Main to students. It's our largest library on campus, houses a lot of our resources, along with the offices for academic support and learning advancement, who oversee drop-in tutoring, peer guided study groups, and the writing place, which is a spot where students can get their essays edited and some writing support if they need it. But we're gonna come up on Deering Library, which is actually our oldest library at Northwestern. It was opened during the Great Depression, so it's been around for a while. It's definitely our prettiest library. And then our third library, we're not going to see on this tour today, but it's called Mud Library, so you can Google it and see just how pretty the building is. It's our science and engineering library. There's not really books in there, so library is a strong term, but it's a space where a lot of students will hang out and study. There's also a lot of computer science resources and different engineering resources in there, along with it being our only 24/7 library. So you can hang out in there no matter what hour of the day it's in. They also have showers to make sure everyone stays clean.
I want to direct your attention back to Deering Library. If there is one homework assignment the second you're done with this, I need you to look up Deering Library in the fall. All this ivy behind us becomes red and orange and yellow, and it is so beautiful. On every college tour I went on, my tour guides were like, yeah, we have a Harry Potter style building. Well, so do we, and this is that. It's modeled after King's College, which you can see some parallels in the Harry Potter movie if you pay close enough attention. But fun fact, there's one person who thinks this building is so ugly, and you know what his name is?
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah, he's a Chicago architect, and we had this ribbon cutting ceremony in this lawn here, and in front of all of our guests. He said he would pay Northwestern to rip that library apart brick by brick because he said it was the ugliest and the most offensive building he's ever seen. He said it looked like a dead pig lying on its back with its feet up, flailing in the air, and that's pretty rude. We actually went on a manhunt, and we bought as many of his original and unfinished blueprints as we, Northwestern, could get our hands on. Do you know where we house them?
In here.
In the library. So if you're asking yourself, am I petty? Am I vindictive? And if the answer is yes, this is the cultural fit you're looking for. As we're walking past Deering Library, let's talk learning, specifically learning outside the classroom. We call it applied learning, and that's going to be research, study abroad, and internships. So Northwestern is a Tier 1 research institution. That means we're allocating $3.5 million each year to our undergraduate researchers. So research can take a bunch of different flavors, if you will. So if you want that lab-based, like wafting out of a beaker, super science-y research, yeah, that's what Northwestern's known for. It's our bread and butter. But I made use of the undergraduate research assistance program, and that means I left high school with no research experience. So if you're looking to go to a Tier 1 research institution like Northwestern, don't force yourself to do research. You can get it here if you have no research experience. I got paid $15 an hour to join our communications lab that specifically focuses on leadership. It's called Atlas, if you want to look it up. And two big things that we got to do in this lab was, one, work with astronauts at NASA. They're doing this thing called social network analysis through NASA, and they're trying to figure out, of all the astronauts, who are the best pairings and groups of astronauts to put together in the more rigorous parts of their training. So they'll give them a bunch of leadership tasks like defusing this bomb or like keeping them in solitary confinement to raise their tensions. Obviously that sounds a bit more cooler than it actually is. They all signed up for it. That is a really cool project that we get to see and experiment with to see if those leadership theories that are getting them through these assignments are going to relate to the leadership theories our lab has found and researched. Another thing I got to do, so I got paid $15 an hour for students to work on that project, but I got to use my research in the communications leadership lab for class credit. I studied businesses, and we studied leadership effectiveness and emergence after like some diversity training, or we looked at the differences between companies who didn't have diversity training to see how likely people would be to move up within companies based off their own unique identities that they are bringing to the company. So that's a cool research experience I got to have.
Yeah, I also have had research experiences here. A School of Communication specific program is called the Early Research Experience Award, or the EREA for short. And this is a program similar to the university-wide URAP program, which matches students who have never done research before with a lab and then pays us to do research there. So through that program, I got matched with the Swallowing Cross Systems Collaborative, which is a lab in the Communication Sciences and Disorders program that looks at specifically the relationship between breathing and swallowing, improving diagnostic outcomes for swallowing disorders, and ultimately trying to improve treatments for different patient populations. I've worked on projects that have involved patients with head and neck cancer, Parkinson's disease, and COPD, just as a few. They're also working on some new pediatric population things that I'm really excited to see. And these are all experiences I've had because Northwestern and the School of Communication are so great at giving us those opportunities to have hands-on learning and things that we're actually interested in. So research is definitely a big thing here, whether that's the more science-y research, arts-based, really can be anything here. No matter what you are doing, you can find something that is research and get the university to pay for it.
And how you find it is we have this giant database where you input all those research topics you might want to study here, and you'll chunk out every study with an ongoing project you can join. And if you can't find what you're looking for, just do it yourself. The infamous psych and theater example we give is there is this friend I have named Ferdinand, theater major, and he realized Northwestern didn't do enough research about fan fiction, so he got paid $4,000 to conduct his own research study, which involved him downloading Wattpad and reading around 5 or so Harry Styles Wattpad fan fictions, and he turned it into a play on our campus. The psych example is about a psychology student who is studying the psychology of large crowds. She couldn't find a large crowd with our 8,000 undergraduate population here, so she used her money that they gave for her research project to go to 3 international music festivals, and then she did her research on that. So it's also really important research you could be doing, just as important as all like the health and swallowing, cancer helping, rehabilitating research that Sophia did. They're all equal, all valid, all important.
Yeah, so right now we're actually outside of Annie Mae Swift. This is home of the Radio, Television, and Film department. Also,
as well as the Performance Studies department. So 2 majors for the school come right here.
So all of our RTBF majors will likely be in this building editing at some point or taking their classes, and Performance Studies majors having their really cool classes as well with all of our faculty. Something we definitely wanted to highlight along our tour.
Another facet of learning outside the classroom is going to come down to study abroad. So we say around 40% of our students study abroad. You might hear the number being around 33% of our students. That's our COVID number, so we're always on the up and up with that. It's rumored that around 20% of us will go abroad multiple times because we utilize the quarter system. If you're not going abroad your freshman year that often, that's essentially 12 quarters to go abroad multiple times. So we really make use of it here. That just means if Northwestern has a campus in another part of the country and the globe, just do it there. Or if Northwestern has affiliation with another university across 55 different countries with over 200 programs to choose from. Some study abroad programs I'd like to shout out is the Prague Film School program. We just passed the film building, so a lot of students will go to Prague and study film. We also have the London Conservatory for some of our theater majors if that's of interest. But some other study abroads look like studying global health in South Africa, which some of our tour guides have gotten to do, which has been super cool. If there's any other study abroads you want to shout out?
School of Comm is currently working on some partnerships with the University of Sydney, so look out for that. Hopefully that will be coming out soon. Study abroad really can look a lot of different ways no matter who you are and what you're interested in, whether that's studying something specific or just going to a really cool place abroad.
One thing to note is that your financial aid is going to study abroad with you. That means you'll never be paying more to do a quarter abroad than to do a quarter here in Evanston. And lastly, you can bring another university study abroad program to our global learning office. We're both from New Jersey. All of our friends go to Rutgers, which is a huge state school, and all my friends from high school are going on their abroad experience from Rutgers. And I had FOMO, so I brought their study abroad program to our global learning office and was like, is there a world in which I can do this? And like, of course, we'll never penalize you for choosing Northwestern if it relates to another universities abroad. They were just like, only these credits will transfer over, and you might have to miss 2 quarters because they utilize a semester, which is a bit larger than a quarter.
Yeah, the last thing about applied learning we'll talk about is internships. Northwestern has a university-wide office called Northwestern Career Advancement that is there to help you with really anything career related, but us as School of Comm students have an extra office that's really there to help us in more of the domains that we do, and they're experts in all of our majors and the career fields that our students will typically go into. That's an office that we call EPICS. They're there to help you with resume reviewing, interview prep, career coaching. They also help you with internships for credit, which is a really cool program that you get to do here if you want to take the quarter off of classes and instead be working a full-time internship, whether that's with iHeartRadio in Chicago, or I could work at like a pediatric speech clinic. There's a lot of different ways that students will get involved in career opportunities here, and we have advisors that are really there to help support us within that journey.
All right, we've entered what we call Rock Plaza because we're in a plaza and then that's a rock behind us. But it's actually not a rock, sorry to lie to you. It's actually a fountain. In the early 1900s, a graduating senior class gifted us a fountain and it looked really pretty. We put it right here, but famously Chicago winters get kind of cold, so the water expanded and froze within the pipes and burst it from the inside out when maintenance forgot to turn it off. And it became a pile of rubble. We built this banister we're sitting on because it looked not so pretty as rubble, but it wasn't until a group of freshmen snuck out of their dorms past curfew and painted on the rubble something along the lines of freshmen rule, seniors drool. Obviously, we both love tour guiding. We want to keep our job, so that's like the PG version of what they actually wrote, like trust, there's profanity in there. Because the seniors were so mad, they dragged the freshmen out of their dorms, made them grab their toothbrushes, and made them scrub off the paint till there was none left. And the freshmen were like, just got caught vandalizing. They didn't do it again until they were seniors, this time painting seniors rule, freshmen drool. Still flower that up in your mind with the profanity of choosing. But when they went to graduate, the freshmen painted right over them, and it's birthed this tradition of painting over this rubble again and again and again. So currently it's painted for Charlie XCX's new Brat album, which personally I love. But you can see it painted for any reason. Typically it's going to be used to call attention to something going on around the world that we want our collective student body to start to pay attention to. So we do use it for activism a bunch. Also for the theater majors out there, if you're doing a show, you'll probably paint the rock to advertise for it. Or if you're a philanthropy group like Northwestern Dance Marathon, you'll paint it to advertise your fundraiser fundraiser to raise over $1 million after dancing for 24 hours straight for raising money for a different Chicago charity each year, which is a super great tradition we have here as well. There are 2 rules I had to follow when I painted the rock. Have you painted the rock?
I have painted the rock.
So we both painted the rock. So the 2 rules we followed was 1, we have to guard it for an entire 24 hours. This means standing behind this black banister for an entire day. And this ensures that every message stays on that rock for a full day. And I guess we have to prove ourselves that we can withstand boredom for that long. But the second thing we both had to do is paint it under the cover of night. This is to honor those freshmen who snuck out past curfew before us. And we will check that you are following these rules at the top of that building, that clock tower that we looked at earlier, University Hall. There is a 24/7 live streaming camera. So you can look up the Northwestern rock camera and see what's happening at the rock. So some of the best rocks I've seen here was my own rock, where we painted advertising applications for Survivor Northwestern, the reality TV show I host. Or I saw someone write, "Will you marry me?" on the rock. So yes, you can get married here. I also saw someone paint it that said Jonathan sucks at fantasy football. So I'm guessing he lost his fantasy football league and had to stand out here for a whole day to paint it.
Yeah, I have also guarded and painted the rock. I had the infamous 1 to 4 a.m. shift once for guarding for my student group. I was in a tent right back here, and we heard some rustling going on, so we actually checked the rock cam to see what was making the noise. It was just someone taking out the trash, but it was a good way to stay cozy in our tent while still knowing what was going on. But we were painting it for what we called Cancer Sex Week, which is just like a fundraising initiative for Camp Kesem that I said I was part of. But the rock really is just a good idea of what's happening on campus. You'll see it painted for such a wide variety of things, and I love checking the rock to just see where the other students on campus are at.
So fun fact about that building we just looked at is that used to be our dining halls, our dorms, and a handful of classrooms in the earliest part of our history. So we're gonna walk and talk dorms and dining.
Yeah, so we have a 2-year residential requirement for our students. All of our students will live on campus for their first and second years, and this is just a good way to make sure that you're building community with the other students. We have a really wide range of buildings here, of sizes ranging from 30 students all the way up to 500, and a lot of different bathroom styles and layouts, so you can really find what's right for you in housing. The 2 main categories of buildings that we're gonna have are residential halls and residential colleges. Residential hall is kind of like your typical dorm at any school where an RA is going to put on programming to build community amongst students in that building, whereas a residential college is themed housing and is going to build that community through a shared interest that you would indicate on your application. I lived in the communications residential college my first year, and we had a movie screening room, actually 2 of them. We had a big and a small, so we would watch some cool movies on the massive screen that we had. There's also the College of Science and Engineering that has a 3D printer, humanities residential college. There's also 2 residential colleges whose themes are that they have no theme and just have a really wide range of different resources that you can take part in.
So as you'll be living here for 2 years, you'll be eating here for 2 years, and we'll give you what we call as the open access unlimited meal plan. It's not actually unlimited. You'll only get 999 swipes into our dining halls every week. I don't know if you have, but I have not heard anyone coming close to entering the dining hall 999 times. If you want to be the first, fight for it. Be the change you want to see. But I will say, before I talk about our dining halls, my family is crazy Italian, and we don't mess about our home cooked meals. So my dad would always grill our tour guides on our college tours about how the food is, honestly. So my honest review is the food is good. I think the food could use a little bit more garlic, but what we sometimes lack in depth of flavor, we will always 100% of the time make up for it in versatility. Our 4.5 dining halls feature that 5th-ish dining hall as being a completely allergen-friendly dining hall that avoids the top 10 most common US allergens, so it is cross-contamination free. The other 4 larger dining halls come with a bunch of rotating stations, which just means you'll have unique meals per dining hall per meal of the day. So we have a halal rotating stations, vegan stations, international food stations, comfort food stations, as well as some standard ones like a Pure Eats, which is always going to be allergen-friendly food in each dining hall, pizza bar, salad bar, dessert bar, burgers, fries, deli, so lots of stuff to choose from every time you're at the dining hall. And Sophia mentioned this earlier, but you'll get 5 free meals via the meal exchanges when we talked about our student center, as well as those dining dollars that we also mentioned that work at our convenience stores, late night dining, and protein and smoothie bowl places.
Yeah, so we have a lot of dining options. Also, those dining halls are throughout campus in what we call our residential areas. These are kind of like neighborhoods around campus that will share a set of common resources, one of those being a dining hall, although you can go anywhere around campus for your dining needs. Also there we have, for example, in our south area, that fitness center in the basement, a lot of areas will share. There's also an engagement center, a teaching kitchen, and every area will have a faculty and residents who's there to live on campus and help build community amongst students. So our housing and dining experience for those 2 years, you will never go hungry and you will never go without community here. It's definitely a big part of the Northwestern experience.
Just for my dad, how do you think the food is?
I told James this earlier, but I definitely grew up from a less rich culinary household. Salt and pepper were kind of the staples of my culinary experience growing up. So I came to Northwestern and thought the food was amazing. I expanded my palate so much here. I definitely think they were using a lot more spices and flavors that I was typically used to. They also have a whole hot sauce bar if you really want to add some spice to your food, of some locally sourced hot sauces that I know a lot of friends would use when they were getting the food from the dining hall to kind of spice up their meals and change it up a little bit. But James and I actually have the same favorite meal at the dining hall, which is the cilantro lime pesto tofu. And so if you are lucky enough to come here and eat, whether that's while you're visiting or when you actually come to Northwestern, we highly suggest that as the option.
So we're coming up towards the end of our tour. You can see our Weber Arch. You probably have a lot to say about the Arch because we both have helped run school communication orientation. So if you want to talk all things Arch.
The Weber Arch was donated by a former president, but then became the site of what we call March Through the Arch. This is a tradition that starts off every single Northwestern student's experience here. We start on the other side of this crosswalk, and then in matching bright purple t-shirts, very similar to the one I have on, we'll process up through the arch, ending at Deering Meadow, right in front of that library we showed you earlier. This tradition kicks off your Northwestern experience, your symbolic first steps on campus, with family members, professors, other students lining the walkways, really excited to welcome our new Wildcats. It's also something that kicks off Wildcat Welcome, our new student orientation process, something James and I are obviously very passionate about, having been involved with it for a lot of our Northwestern careers. Every student will get a peer advisor, which is an upper level student who will help guide you through the week. Also will lead you through the march with a little number sign that tells your parents exactly where you are to make sure that they get a really cute picture of you as you're starting your Northwestern journey. 4 years later, graduation weekend, which James recently took part in, you'll start at the opposite end of the path, process out this way in a tradition we call March Back Through the Arch. Your symbolic last steps on campus. I like to think of them more as like your first steps into the world outside of Northwestern, into our really vibrant alumni community that's ready to welcome our students as they're moving to their new cities, telling them where to live, where to eat, and just helping them along their ways in their career paths, and also just living in a new spot, reminding them that Purple Pride is forever and you're always a Wildcat here.
So before we wrap up the tour, we also think at Northwestern it's wholly important to keep up your identities and faith if that is important to you as a student. You can kind of see the church poking through that building. That's Alice Miller Chapel. Different spaces of that building can help students practice different religious identities or practices that they have. And that busy street with all the loud cars behind us that we just kind of saw in the background. Down that road we call this Sheridan. You'll find a lot of affinity spaces on our campus, like a Black house, a Latin house, multicultural student house, a women's center, and a gender and sexuality house for LGBTQ plus students on our campus as well. We also have a Catholic center and a Hillel. So we find that cultivating your identities with people who share those identities on our campus is pretty important. I also think we're building a Middle Eastern student housing on this road as well. So we're very excited for that to come to our campus. But just like I walked and marched back out to this arch, the last thing I did as an official Northwestern student, we are under the arch. So let's talk about one of the last things you'll do when you apply to Northwestern.
Which is your supplemental questions. There's a couple of them for you to choose from, but they're all getting at the same idea, which is why Northwestern? Why do you want to come to Northwestern? So James and I are going to talk about our why Northwestern, of what made us come here. James and I were both pretty indecisive people. Me personally, I took right until the last day to decide. I decided that although I could really see myself at several schools and just figuring out how to be happy there, Northwestern was the only school I could not possibly imagining myself saying no to and hitting that no button on the application portal. That was really because Northwestern had a lot of academic opportunities that I wanted to see. I knew what I wanted to major in. I knew that Northwestern had a great program in it, some professors I would get to connect with, research I would get to do, and I was really excited by all the academic opportunities at Northwestern within my major. But I also knew that I had more than just my major as an interest. I was also interested in psychology and linguistics and potentially exploring math or data science or other things like that. And Northwestern was a school that was not only going to allow me to pursue those interests, but was really going to encourage it. I ultimately decided to pick up a psychology and linguistics minor, two things that I've had a really easy time doing alongside my major while still getting that full experience in the classes I wanted to take, and has really excited me. But my larger why Northwestern now, what I say keeps me here and makes me keep choosing Northwestern every single day, is our student community. I think we have an incredibly collaborative and supportive student body that's also really passionate, but I love going into my classes and feeling like I really have a home there and feeling like my fellow students are there to help me out if one of us is sick and we can share notes or study together for tests. It's a really nice feeling to know that my classmates are not my competitors, but they're really there to help me along these 4 years and have been a great part of why I've enjoyed my time at Northwestern so far and are making me really sad to eventually leave here.
So for me, I picked college, I think, in the worst way possible. I flipped a coin. I was stuck between a school in California and Northwestern because I knew I was super committed to business, but I always found it, with my background in theater and performance from high school, I wanted to focus on something a little bit more human focused, which led me to communications. And I ended up flipping a coin between a school in California and here, and I couldn't decide, and my dad was like, James, I'll just pick for you, heads California, tails Northwestern. And he flips the coin, and it's heads. And I was like, oh, okay, great, it's California, it's always been you. And then I sat down, ate dinner, and in classic Italian boy fashion, had to get a second bowl of pasta, and out of the corner of my eye, the coin was still there, and I told myself, if the universe really wants me to go to California, it'll land on heads again. So thank God this time when I flipped it, it also was heads. And I flipped it again, heads, and again, heads. And even though the universe and statistics or whatever probability you believe in told me it was California, my gut said otherwise, because I knew if I had to flip the coin more than just once, I wasn't satisfied with the outcome, and that's how I knew it was Northwestern. But being indecisive actually makes it a perfect place for people like me and Sophia. For the environment, I say you have every type of college experience you have just at Northwestern. Our friends go to Rutgers, but I want that D1 state school experience. We have that here with our D1 athletics and huge school spirit. I wanted a big theater, big art school with our 80 full-length productions, 600 plus clubs, and a music conservatory on our campus. It's just as musical as anywhere else right here at Northwestern with world-renowned theater and arts. But I also wanted a college downtown. I grew up near Princeton, New Jersey, and they had a downtown. We have all of Evanston, which made me feel like I was always at home when I came here. I wanted California for the beaches and the warm weather, and we have the beaches. And I wanted Northwestern because my twin brother goes to school in New York City. I also wanted a city school, and we have the third biggest city in the country right in our backyards. But above else, I really wanted a rigorous Ivy League education. You can do your own research, but I think you'll see that Northwestern does very well for itself academically and is just as comparable to those institutions as well. So I call it the Goldilocks school. It does every college experience just right, but I obviously also stay here for the people like Sophia, who study multiple things, get involved with research, do a bunch of different clubs, are also the people I consider myself to be similar to. I've tried economics, I've landed with psychology and communications, and it has been such an enriching part of my experience to evolve as a person with just interesting interesting people. I end my tours by saying this, but you will have all of high school to become a good student. You will have all of college to become a good and interesting person. At a place like Northwestern, where everyone focuses on their passions and doesn't just limit themselves to be good at one club and one major, you truly are enriched by such a well-rounded and holistic community. So that's why I chose Northwestern, and the people and the community is why we obviously stay. Thank you so much for going on our tour.
Thanks for coming on our virtual tour today. We end all of our tours with the way we start an orientation with a good Go Cats!